tonight that are taking part. I really appreciate your time, and my heartfelt intention is to be of service in the hopes that perhaps something from my own story, my own journey, may be of help to anybody, and for us to have an open talk about the dark night of the soul. And I am certainly welcome questions at any point. Please feel free to raise your hand in the chat group if you have a question. So I guess I'm actually going to start. I know I said, Philip, I was maybe going to start with my story, but I'm going to actually start with just a little bit of a sort of a definition of what the dark night of the soul is. It's a tricky one to define, to be honest. Probably, I wouldn't be surprised a lot of you have heard that term thrown around, probably, especially in the last year. And that's no accident because as we know, as I'm sure a lot of us know, it's where unity consciousness connects us all, of course, and we are all a part of the greater whole. And so in this last year, while the world is going through, literally the world is going through the dark night of the soul. And so it's no accident that almost everybody individually, we are also going through our own dark night of the soul. And that's because we're the microcosm within that macrocosm. We're the drop within the ocean, and we're all connected. And so, yeah, let me start with a little bit of a definition of dark night of the soul. And I'm going to read a little bit off of some notes I made because it's, like I say, it's a tricky thing to define. So I put together some of my thoughts about it here. It is absolutely, no doubt about it, a very challenging and powerful journey to go through. It's a stage within the overall journey of spiritual transformation. It's a journey of self-discovery, and as tough as it is, it leads us to realizing our highest potential, for sure. It is an unavoidable part of the process of awakening and of evolving and of the overall ascension process, which again, the whole world is going through this process right now. So not at all surprising that a lot of us are finding ourselves going through this as well. It could be described to be the death of the old self, which gives rise to the birth of our true self, our authentic self. In a way, it's the death of the negative aspects of our ego, and especially the disowned aspects of our ego. And I'll get into that a little bit more in a few minutes. It's part of shadow work is a big part of the dark night of the soul of this journey. And a big part of shadow work is looking at our those disowned aspects of our ego, which are usually the things that, first of all, that we're unaware of because they're in our subconscious. They're not on the conscious level until we start to do the work of working through the dark night of the soul. And we use some tools to help us to look into our shadow. It is, the dark night of the soul is more of a spiritual depression as opposed to a clinical physiological depression. The two states have a lot of similarities, absolutely, for sure. There can be such an extreme feeling of loneliness and separation from others around us, separation from whatever we consider to be source or creator or God, whatever term we use for it. So it's definitely marked by a real feeling of loneliness. But as I say, it's more of a spiritual depression versus a clinical depression. We could definitely say it's an existential crisis because it really forces us to ask all the big questions that everybody asks at some point in life. Why am I here? What is my purpose? What is the meaning of life? So all of that big stuff is what starts to come up for us. Essentially, really the dark night of the soul, it's a process, like I say, of losing ourselves, losing aspects, especially the negative aspects of our ego, and going through that darkness in order to come out the other side and come into the light and realize our potential. So yeah, the negative aspect of the ego and the aspects of what we have thought of as our personality, those are especially the parts of us that literally collapse and have to and crumble in the dark night of the soul. And again, we're seeing this happening even on the world stage as the world goes through the dark night of the soul. All those things, so both within us and on the world stage, all of those things that have been hidden, that have been kept in the dark. And unfortunately, I think most of us here probably know what a lot of those terribly dark things are on the world stage that we're seeing come out. At least to some extent, we're seeing the truth of those things coming out, talking about child trafficking and so on. So everything that's been hidden and in the darkness and in the shadows on the world stage is coming out. As I say, and in certain respects, it's coming out. I know we're all so waiting and so hoping that to see that come out more on mainstream, in the mainstream for other people to see, hopefully at some point. But like I say, because we're microcosm of the macrocosm, we are all going through this individually as well. So on an individual process, it's about starting to look inside of us and do some of this shadow work, which means looking at, again, those parts of us that especially that we have denied, that we haven't wanted to look at, that we haven't even been aware of a lot of the time. Those aspects of ourselves, to look at them and to work with them, to bring them up into the surface, to see them, to get rid of what no longer serves us, and to keep what is working for us, or change what we need to so that it works for us better. So I guess the other part of the dark night of the soul is, it, like I say, it's a part of spiritual transformation. It's part of the journey of self-discovery. Everybody goes through this at some point in life, and it's not uncommon for a lot of us to go through it a number of times. And again, because of what's has been coming out on the world stage in the last year, because of all the darkness that's coming up, it really is instigating that process for a lot of us. So tied in with the dark night of the soul is part of really what's called the hero's journey. Some of you may have heard of this. It's a theory that was formed by Joseph Campbell. And the hero's journey is essentially the journey of going into the darkness, facing our demons, fighting the dragon, and then coming out again. There's actually 12 parts to the hero's journey, and I'll see if I can relate some of them to what's happening on the world stage as well, so we can get a little bit of an idea of what the world is moving through. And also I'll relate some of these stages to the process, the internal process that each of us individually goes through. And like I say, if there's any questions along the way, please feel free to just put them, raise your hand or put them into the chat, and I'm happy to take questions at any point. So the first stage of the hero's journey, the hero's called out from the castle to fight the dragon, basically. So the first stage is there is a challenge of some sort, a call to adventure. I was thinking about this when I was thinking of the hero's journey, how it's very much also a formulation that we see in a lot of movies. So I'm thinking of the movie The Matrix, because there's so many overlays with the movie of The Matrix compared to what we're living through in the world right now.
I thought you were to go Star Wars, because Lucas, piggybacked on Joseph Campbell with that hero's journey to help him, with that kind of plot and how that's going to lay it out. And you're saying all the things that I wanted to jump in on, because
absolutely,
the theme of journey and quest, or even this hero's journey, absolutely is not just in basically every single story or fable, whether we're talking about a children's book or an action movie. There is a formula of this journey, and it is mirrored in just our experience. Propelled. We're all propelled in this current journey right now, and I think just this theme, this idea of the hero's journey, I love it because I love Star Wars, but I also love it because it is also, it can transition to all different parts of our experience here on Earth. And we all love stories. Don't we all love stories? So this gives us a really great framework to understand the process of not just someone else's story, but our own story and our own journey, whether it's with a relationship, whether it's in a friendship or an event, or whether it's in our spiritual quest to find purpose, to find meaning, to find the spark that has been disconnected from us, and it's in that reconnection that we receive the riches from slaying the dragon, so we can bring back that bounty to our homestead. I love the goosebumps because I love this topic, so I'll talk about it. But please, I love how you're getting into the 12 aspects, and you wanted to highlight on some. I interrupted. Please, Jacqueline, go ahead.
No, so great. I'm so glad you jumped in, Philip. That's awesome. It's the fact that it's a story that all of us goes through, like you say, Philip, at some point in life. And the fact that we've seen this story over and over in so many movies, maybe makes it just the tiniest bit, a little bit easier. I think just knowing that, I know for me anyways, when I've been through the hardest times in life, and I know there'll still be some ahead of me, that's what life is. What helps me a lot is knowing that I'm not alone, knowing that other people have gone through this. So yeah, with the hero's journey, the first step is the challenge, the call to adventure. It could be a new opportunity that comes up for us to embark on some sort of a new quest. It often the hero's journey, and as you'll see as we get into the hero's journey, as it leads into the most challenging part, that dark night of the soul, often the whole journey starts with it certainly can start with a challenge, whether it's say a job loss, whether it's the loss of a loved one, whether it's some information that comes into our awareness that is really shocking. And Absolutely. I know for me, I've been through my second dark night of the soul in this last year. And I'm sure there's a lot of us out there that, like I say, that have gone through it. Having had that information for me, uh, the awakening process, my original, sorry, I'm going to go back a little bit. My original, what I call spiritual awakening, realizing there's something greater than myself and that I'm a part of it, started back in about 2004. But I had no idea that there was a different kind of awakening that I was going to go through that started last March in 2020. And that was with the knowledge of this information that suddenly dropped into my world, onto my laptop in front of me, about the true reality of the world. And I know, Philip, I'll try to maybe use a little bit of coded language here and there. I know if you do end up, putting things on YouTube, we're living with censorship these days. But certainly the shocking information that I'm talking about is not surprising. The child trafficking, the truth about how the world is run. I'll leave it at that for now. But that started, again, another dark night of the soul for myself in this last year. What added to that dark night of the soul, I'm going to jump in back and forth into my story a little bit here. Last June, I was riding through the forest. My husband and I, our absolute favorite thing to do, my biggest passion, is mountain bike riding in the forest. And we were having a beautiful ride last June, and I had a really good wipeout and broke my leg in 3 places. So that was, in some ways, a bit of a synchronicity. It was definitely a sign from the universe for me. The universe was saying, okay, time to stop. We're going to take away all distractions and have you laid up and on crutches for 6 months so that you can do some inner work. And that was at the same time that I discovered this very shocking truth and information about the reality of our world. So oftentimes, like I say, the beginning of the hero's journey starts with some sort of a challenge. So whether it's an illness or an injury or loss of a loved one, loss of a job. So that was the start for me in that case. I'm going to just make a little parallel going back to the Matrix. I wish I'd watched Star Wars more recently, Philip. Then I would give you more references from Star Wars. But definitely, oh my gosh, I forget what's the main character's name. Luke, what's his name? Luke Skywalker, right? Oh gosh, I haven't watched in a long time. But Luke Skywalker, at the beginning, he was, very dissatisfied with his life as a farm boy, and was hoping for adventure, and the universe brought him adventure. So that was his call to adventure. In the Matrix, it would be when Neo gets the message on his computer to follow the white rabbit. And I know it amazes me, the parallels with the Matrix and what the world is going through, because a lot of us have followed that rabbit and gone down some very dark rabbit holes in the last year in learning, right, about the truth of our world. And it's no wonder that we're all going through this dark night of the soul. We've had this right in our faces, this very shocking information. So that is step one. Something calls us into the challenge and into the beginning of the hero's journey. The next stage is actually refusal of the call, refusal of the adventure, which happens a lot of the time. Many of us will have some challenge come up in our life. Let's say perhaps it's a job loss, but we may choose at that time, instead of taking the time, nurture ourselves and look within and try to understand maybe, what's within us that led us to this change, this loss of job. So that can be an example of a refusal of the call or the adventure. It's when it, if we're looking at it in terms of emotional healing, it would be when we say, no, thanks, I'm not going to look at it right now. We're going to, and we avoid our issues. And, no judgment. It's all about divine right timing for each one of us when we do this work, this very challenging work of looking within us and taking this journey. So certainly no judgment. It's going to happen when we're ready for it to happen. The next step in the hero's journey is usually meeting a mentor, someone who can help us. If we're looking at again, the emotional healing work, usually that would be the point where we reach out and we ask for help from some sort of a helping professional, or whoever we feel comfortable working with, whether it's a counselor, a therapist, whether it's a shaman, whether it's a life coach, whatever works for us. And that can also be, a mentor can also be just other like-minded individuals. So just like we have here in Connecting Consciousness. I mean, what an absolutely beautiful forum to be able to meet like-minded people and to support each other through this really challenging work. It certainly is a gift to have this. The next stage in the journey is what we call crossing the threshold. And that means crossing from what has been the ordinary world, our everyday life, into what's termed the special world, which can refer to, in mythology, it would be going out to find the dragon, going into the fantasy world. When we're doing the emotional healing work, the special world is our internal world. And once we cross that threshold, in the Matrix, that would have been when Neo takes the red pill, and there's no turning back after that point. And for us, with what we're going through in the world right now, I think that it brings to mind for me that expression, you can't unring a bell. So for a lot of us, I think that crossing the threshold point would be when we had that information come in front of us. If it was new to us in the last year, there are certainly people that have been awake to the truth and the reality of our world for many, many years. And oh my goodness, I have to say my heart goes out to those people, because I know how challenging it's been for me just to know of this information in the last year. And again, thank God for Connecting Consciousness, for us to be able to share our feelings in going through this. And I just saw someone, sorry, I didn't see who it was, but made a great comment in the chat there. It just popped up, of the Lord of the Rings, another absolutely fantastic story that totally ties in with the hero's journey. Absolutely.
And again, it just really goes to show how much our culture leans on this kind of media to express esoteric notions and ideas and concepts in a way that is acceptable within the system that we've created, we're allowed to happen. And it's like we said, it's hidden, but it is there for us to see it. Like, I don't know how, I'm sure everyone here that has woken up and can remember watching a movie before and watching a movie now, you are watching two different films of information. And once you can start on that journey and you can start picking some of those pieces out, the plot or the themes hit at you stronger. And for those that love symbolism, there's lots of symbolism in the media as well. So that's another wonderful topic. Very, very quickly, Caroline did ask if would you say a hero could have many mentors?
Oh, absolutely. Great question, Carolyn. Absolutely, for sure. And you don't a mentor, and you're just reminding me by asking this question. Thanks, Carolyn, that we don't even necessarily have to meet a mentor. A mentor can be someone we look up to and have learned from, maybe through their books, whether it's Joseph Campbell or maybe some of the mystics that speak to us. And I should say, speaking of mystics, Saint John of the Cross is the 15th century Spanish monk and mystic who coined the term dark night of the soul. Just wanted to throw that in there. But yeah, we don't even necessarily have to meet a mentor. It can be the help that they bring us, the wisdom that they bring us through their teachings, through a book, or through a movie, the inspiration that we get. So great question. Thanks, Carolyn. Absolutely. So carrying on in the hero's journey, the once we cross the threshold, we are basically, that again, that means going into the unknown. So in the individual emotional healing work, that means delving into our unconscious. And once we cross that threshold, there's no turning back. And the next stage is really the stage that covers the tests that we come up against in our healing journey, the allies that we meet, and also the enemies that we come up against. And I was thinking of this as again, with what we're going through in the world stage, I thought of a little bit of a parallel. So we all have come across this information. We've crossed into this unknown world of chaos and total reversal of what we thought our world and reality was all about when we see this information. And I know not to make people enemies by any means, but just a little bit of a parallel with this stage in the hero's journey. I know that I've certainly experienced this, having coming across people that are not awake yet, and we all we can do is trust and hope that everybody wakes up in the divine right timing that's right for them. But when we do talk with people that we meet day to day, whether it's somebody at the grocery store, whether it's a neighbor who has not woken up yet, and may have really strong feelings against what we might share, what we might speak about. And that to me is a little bit of a parallel of some of these tests and some of the disagreements that we come up against once we've crossed into this world, this unknown world.
Jacqueline, if I could stop you,
yeah.
just pause for 1 second. There are a couple questions that
Sure.
I think they're going to be quick.
No problem.
So Catherine just wanted, I think we touched on this, but maybe you can expand a little bit. Can we experience more than one dark night of the soul during our lifetime?
Yep. Great question. You got it. Here's me going through my second one, at least that I recognize in the last year. So yep, absolutely. You're reminding me thanks with asking that question as well. A similar kind of question is some people ask is, how long is it going to take to get through the dark night of the soul? And honestly, it's a really, really tough one to answer. It's different. Of course, it's different for all of us because we're all multidimensional, amazing, multifaceted individuals. And all of our experiences are individual to us. I mean, in general, if we were sort of going to give it a range, we could maybe say 3 months to a year, but absolutely, it's not uncommon for people to go through sometimes a few years, several years of this process. Not that it would, all be at that really intense level, but kind of going in and doing the emotional work, diving into our shadow, doing that shadow work. And that's the point where sometimes we may find that we do want to reach out to to a healer of some sort or a therapist to help us with that shadow work.
Do you, Jacqueline, piggybacking on that for a second?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, sorry. 1 second. Connie, can you just mute?
Oh, I apologize.
It's okay. Thank you. Piggybacking off of that for 1 second, would you say that there's a correlation between I don't know if I'm going to be saying this right, the contractual lessons that we agreed to our journey and those obstacles?
I think I've got just so say it again, is there a parallel between our pre-life contract?
Yeah, so like with that, is there a parallel with the obstacles that we are faced on that journey? Those are essentially those lessons that we've agreed to learn.
Great question. I don't know if I could answer for sure. I would think so, certainly. I mean, that's my belief. Absolutely, is that we do plan out the majority of our life beforehand. Certainly free will comes into it. And I think with the free will piece, that's where in this hero's journey, where we may, for example, choose to refuse the call, maybe a couple of times before we decide to dive in and do the work. I know, speaking from my own experience, the first really challenging dark night of the soul that I went through, it led me to realizing what my calling was as a healer, as an energy healer, as a spiritual counselor, as a coach. All of those aspects of me, I totally didn't see them, didn't think that was the path for me until I went through this journey, this dark night of the soul. Actually, maybe I'll jump over a little bit to my journey from back then, my first dark night of the soul, which was started in about 2004. And at that point, this is just to give you an idea, and I think to hopefully answers your question a little bit, Philip, that it brought me to realizing more of who I really am and what my true calling is. Because back then, and it seems like a whole lifetime ago to me now, I was working in the pharma industry. I was a pharmaceutical sales rep, and it seemed like this fantastic job at the time. It was, it was certainly lucrative, and I had studied pharmacology and biomedical sciences specifically because I wanted to go into that field. I thought this is great. It uses my schooling and uses my background. I lasted 4 years in it, and that was the beginning of my dark night of the soul, was getting to a point of, honestly, I think it was my soul crying out and saying, this is so not right for you. This is not serving you. It was also, I mean, in that industry, especially back then, there was very little regulation. Meetings happened at bars and at hotels, and nice restaurants, nice hotels. There was always free bar service, and that was part of my journey, was to go from not alcoholism, but to drinking too much, absolutely, and searching. This is all part of the journey too, searching outside of me for what I thought would make me happy. Was it the money? Was it the job? So that's what led me into my first dark night of the soul. And what happened to me in my journey is unfortunately what happens to a lot of people. Over medication was a huge part of the challenge for me. So instead of what would have been ideal for me, which would be to have found a mentor back then that understood the difference between spiritual transformation, spiritual emergency, dark night of the soul versus clinical depression. And like I say, they can be very similar. But my journey took a side route, like I say, which happens to a lot of people, in that Western medicine pathologizes, turns it into a pathology and a disease, what is, an organic, natural process that we all go through. I mean, the dark night of the soul. Now that's when it is truly a dark night of the soul versus, something more serious, clinical depression and so on. But really, once I went off on that side route, that's what led me down a really dark rabbit hole, which ended up in feeling suicidal. And that was I'll jump back into the journey and the stages of this hero's journey now. For me, that was the next stage in the hero's journey, which is the big ordeal, going into the cave, meeting the dragon, going through the process of death and rebirth. So when I left that job, it was a real feeling of failure for me. And at that time, that's because I defined success. I thought success was, okay, you have to make a certain amount of money. And, that was pretty much all I thought it was at that point. So for me, when I lost that job, that's what sent me, along with the combination of having had a label put on me and been put on a whole bunch of, I lost track of how many antidepressants I was put on. It was more than 10. I stopped counting. I can't remember. But my journey of recovery involved not only doing the internal work with a really good, a few different mentors, actually. I did some shamanic work. I did some past life work. I did some work with a therapist, with a counselor, but all of that work was that stage of the journey that we really think of as death and rebirth. And it was the death of the aspects of me that I thought I was, which was not the true authentic me at all. So it was that hard work of doing the shadow work. And that's where it was helpful to have a therapist and a counselor. That work can be really challenging.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. We do have a couple questions
sure.
lined up here. We'll go to Mira first, and then I have one in the chat. But Mira, please go right ahead.
Thank you. I love watching movies and reading books about journeys, but once I'm on my own, I really don't enjoy it. Hello?
You're still there.
I'm still there. Okay, so my understanding, Dark Night of the Soul, is that the person who I used to identify with doesn't exist anymore, and the person that I'm about to become is not formed yet. And I'm in the dark. I have no idea who am I now at this point of time. And I really don't enjoy that process, never mind the 12 steps or 14 steps. To see that on a movie or read in a book, but yeah, that's not a pleasant place where to be. So I learned a little trick along the way where somebody said like, well, don't you ask yourself, if this is going to last for a longer period of time, what quality you need to develop to help yourself so you don't feel so miserable and cranky and unhappy, right? So if you actually focus on a quality that you need to develop, and you kind of, muddle through the whole process a little bit faster, I think, or quicker, right? So instead of focusing on like, oh my God, I don't know who I am. This is a horrible period. Let's just see, how can I grow? What can I become? How can I use this to actually make myself better, or develop something that I never thought about, or develop a quality that I never thought about, right? Now, I this current Dark Night of the Soul, I don't know, has anyone managed to get out of it yet? I don't think I'm any closer than I was last year. So seriously, I did start thinking about it, and I'm just thinking like, oh my God, okay, so if this is going to last another year or 2 or 3 or who knows how long, so what quality do I need to develop? Do I need to be more patient? Do I need to focus on some other things? Do I need to, you know what I mean, focus on something else than the situation that you described, not to mention the names and words. So I think that's pretty much the only way to go, because, you know, if we try to kind of figure out who are we don't know who we are going to become, because that new world that we are heading toward is not born yet. So we really don't know what kind of people we are going to be in that new world that's not there yet. So this is going to be a long, long, long growth path for all of us. And another little that is out there is, you know, when they say, you know, when you're a child and you're crying and you don't know why you're crying, and parents don't know why you're crying, they ask you, well, if you don't stop crying, I'll give you reason to cry, right? So they say, you know, before all this happened, they were saying, okay, so if somebody is against the war, they should not be talking against the war, they should be talking about the peace, right? So if you're against something, don't talk about it and don't fight it. Fight for what you are for. That brings much higher energy and much better focus for your own growth and for everybody else around you, right? So I guess if we don't like what we see right now in our lives, we need to imagine life we want to live and talk about it, right? Pro what is waiting for us, not against what is happening to us right now.
Definitely, indeed. Jacqueline, would you like to comment on that?
Sure. Some great points there, Mira. Thanks so much for bringing it up and sharing it. So really, really great points. I think especially because there's so much unknown and so much uncertainty in the external world around us right now. It's all the more reason for us to take this time and do whatever work we can to help us to know ourselves as best as we can, because that's what's going to help us to feel emotionally healthy and to be emotionally healthy and to feel safe and to feel grounded, because that's all we can control, of course, is just our own world and our own responses and so on. We can't control what's happening out there. And as you say, Mira, such a good point. You know, we don't know how long this sort of instability and uncertainty and wondering what's going to happen on the political world stage, and how is the new earth going to look, and when is it going to happen? That's a lot of uncertainty. So the importance of doing our own emotional work at this time, I think is really important. And there's a lot of times it's interesting. A lot of times as we get into the spiritual transformation journey, we sometimes tend to think that if we focus on the light and if we focus on the positive, which is absolutely great thing to do for sure, and it can be a good tool, but we can sometimes start to think that that is all that we need to do, and that will help guide us. And it was Carl Jung that said, we don't become illuminated by staring at the light. We become, enlightened. We don't become enlightened by looking into the light. We only become enlightened by shining the light into the darkness. So, sometimes on this spiritual path, when we get on this spiritual path, it's really, really easy. And I've done it myself. Absolutely. Lots in the past. It's still a challenge sometimes. As long as we're alive, we're still going to be doing our emotional healing work all the time. But it can be a real challenge to not get caught in what's called spiritual bypassing, which is where we tend to just stay up here in these higher realms, maybe just working with the upper chakra systems, staying in those higher realms, connecting with our highest self, connecting with source, which are all wonderful, wonderful things to do. And we also need so much to go into the shadow and work on those aspects in our subconscious, those disowned parts of ourself that we aren't aware of or that we haven't looked at. I'll try to think of an example of this would be, for example, if we don't do that tougher shadow work of looking at those disowned parts of ourselves, it could mean, for example, the way it could come out in our daily life is that we are so focused on being compassionate, which is an absolutely wonderful quality to have and a behavior to do. But we can, if we get caught up in some spiritual bypassing, what would happen in that case is we may not set our boundaries. We may not be comfortable with saying a firm, strong no to someone when they infringe or cross over our boundaries. And that's, setting boundaries is a really, really important part of having a healthy emotional life. So such a good point that you brought up, Mira. Thank you so much, because it's definitely, like I say, I've gone through it myself, gotten caught up in the spiritual bypass where I've just focused on the higher realms, and then in the day-to-day life of chop wood, carry water, as they say in the Buddhist tradition, of the day-to-day things we have to take care of in life, things like setting boundaries or looking after our financial life, or resolving traumas maybe that we've been through in the past, or resolving a conflict with a family member or family of origin issues. Our initial family that we're born into can carry a lot of the times the biggest parts of our shadow work that needs to be done. But great point, Mira. Thank you for bringing it up.
Thank you, Jacqueline, for that wonderful response and answer. This kind of piggybacks on exactly what we're talking about. But Raymond is curious. Once the universe throws in the monkey wrench, what does one do to identify it as? What does one do to identify it as a change needs to be made?
Okay, good. So how do we know when change is necessary? Is that,
what does one do to identify it as a change that needs to be made? So so a monkey wrench gets thrown into our life. Maybe it's like a trauma light situation where it's like, how do we listen to ourselves, or are there some tools, or there's I think Mira was talking about qualities that we can maybe hone to be able to see, to listen, to feel some of the warnings, or some of the bells. You mentioned bells earlier. Some of the bells that are maybe going off, or some of the lights are maybe flashing. How can we, what are some tools that we can do to better get in tune with that? But maybe Raymond can ask better than what I'm describing with his hand up. Raymond, would you like to give a shot of explaining your question, please?
Hi, Jacqueline.
Hi, Raymond. How you doing?
Good. What I was trying to convey in the question was that we're on a path, and we're in our healing, and we're trying to face our demons and whatnot, and deal with our trauma, do a lot of acceptance, do a lot of forgiving, and so on. And then you're going about, and something immediately comes into your life and destroys everything you've been doing and pushes you into another path that causes you to have anxiety.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is that what I call the universe throwing the wrench at you?
For sure. That's a really good question, Raymond. It's Absolutely. That is the nature of life. Universe is going to throw those monkey wrenches into our path. And usually, and this whole hero's journey, usually it happens right at the time we're least expecting it. If we can ever be ready for that, which I don't think we can, but usually it seems to be at the times where we think everything's going okay. And then, like you say, there's a monkey wrench. So, when it comes to change, it brings to mind, I think in the Chinese language, the word change has two meanings. One is crisis and one is opportunity. And I think maybe that if we can start by looking at whatever that monkey wrench is that comes into our life, that's throwing that change at us, if we can try to remember, okay, change is definitely a challenge. It often comes through a crisis, through a monkey wrench that we weren't expecting, but it also is giving us an opportunity. And that opportunity is to do the emotional healing work that so many of us have to do at some point in life. And with something like anxiety, I mean, in the emotional healing model, basically our shadow parts, our disowned parts, are things that we've repressed and we've shoved down and we haven't wanted to look at. So they can be things, they're typically things that happen to us when we're younger. So this kind of crisis or change that comes into our life, what it's leading us into, it specifically in emotional healing work, is usually going to be healing our inner child. Because in the emotional healing model, it's very much like an onion. So different layers of the onion right down to the core, and into that core, the very center of the onion, is our essence and our soul and our true self. And our inner child is often will go through experiences as when we're young, usually up to the age of 6, is when we go through the all those experiences that shape and mold us, and that actually create our shadow. Our shadow starts from that young, because when we're very young, let's say we get told a typical one that hopefully is changing a lot these days, but back 30 years ago, it was still so common for parents to say, perhaps maybe to their 3-year-old boy who was crying, boys don't cry, stop the tears. What are the tears about? You shouldn't be crying. You're a little boy, you're strong. So those kind of things are what get built into that onion. They're things like fear, they're shame. Actually, shame is the feeling that it's kind of like the fabric that holds all of our shadow pieces together. And so any of the disowned parts, the parts of us that we don't want to recognize, are what end up in those layers of the onion and what end up in becoming our shadow. So doing inner child healing work is a really big part of the dark night of the soul. And there's a lot of different tools that we can use. Some of them we can use on our own. Some of them I'm going to go through a couple of little fairly quick techniques that are some energy techniques that we can use in the moment to help us with feelings of, say, anxiety or stress or fear or worry. When it comes to some of the deeper shadow work, again, that's times when we may want to reach out and get the help of a professional at that point, especially if we're having challenges with our self-esteem, with how we really feel about ourselves. When we have challenges with our self-esteem, that's when it can be helpful to have somebody guide us through this shadow work, so that we have somebody to help create a safe space for us. But I know we're getting a little bit close to the end. I could, if you like, Philip, get into some of the a couple of these tools that we can use on a day-to-day basis.
So yes, thank you so much. First, Mira, is this going to be? Do you have something quick?
It is very quick.
Okay.
When the universe throws a monkey wrench at me, it's a sign for me I'm on a wrong path. I'm going through a bad situation. I think I'm going to take this path and I'm going to this direction to get myself out of it. And then something happens and it hits me on my head. I'm on the wrong path. That's it. I have to go soon. Love you all.
No, thank you so much. With that said, yes, if we can shift Jacqueline to those tools, and then we'll move into our closer meditation. I think it just means we're gonna have to have you back on sooner than later. And I was just saying to Catherine, we should just have our own trilogy here, because there is a lot of information and people are curious. We can definitely talk about this topic for a long time. So perhaps we can book another time very, very soon to we can dive deeper into those steps, because that's something that I'm really interested in. I love to talk about, and I think we're doing a really great job sharing that. But please, for now, let's go into some of those tools, and then we'll go into that closing meditation.
Sure, sounds great. Thanks, Philip. So this tool that I'm going to go over with you, I wouldn't be surprised. A lot of you may have heard of this. Maybe you've already used this, and if you have, it's fantastic. It's a really simple tool, but it's very powerful. It's called EFT, or Emotional Freedom Technique. It's also called tapping, and the whole idea behind tapping. I'm going to lead you through it. I'm going to use 9 main points. There are some very different, various versions of tapping where we can involve even more than 9 points. Gets a little bit more complex and can be helpful too. But for tonight, we're just going to go through the 9 main points. So the idea of tapping, what we're going to do, I'm going to show you 9 different points, and you're going to repeat after me with the phrases that I say. So tapping is simply tapping on acupressure points. So this is based on acupuncture, but instead of using needles, we're just going to use our fingers to tap on ourselves. So acupuncture is based on affecting the energy flow through the body. These energy highways are called meridians. Anybody who's taken yoga has probably learned a little bit about this as well. So I'm just gonna run through it fairly quickly. The first step in using tapping and using emotional freedom technique is to identify what the feeling or emotion is that's bothering us, or it can even be physical pain. EFT is amazing. It can be used for both emotional relief and also physical pain relief. So it could be a sore back, it could be a sore knee, but it could be an emotion as well. So we're going to do an emotion tonight, and one that I'm going to keep it general. I think all of us can relate to feeling stressed at some point lately with what we're going through as light warriors in this journey of watching the world around us crumble and change, and the matrix change. So, okay, the first step is going to be to identify the feeling. So we're going to say it's stress. I'm going to keep it general. Now, what I want you to do is think about the stress that you have, and I want you to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. In other words, how severe is this stress? 1 would be extremely mild, not feeling very stressed at all. 10, extremely stressed. So just take note in your mind, think for a moment how you're feeling, and give that stress a number. And then the next step is going to be to form a bit of a target statement. And what we're going to say is, and this is how emotional freedom technique works, you're always going to start the beginning with, even though I feel all of this, and then you would fill in the blank for whatever applies for you: back pain, or stress, or anxiety, or fear, or sadness, or anger, whatever the difficult emotion or feeling is. So I'm going to show you the points first of all quickly. Okay, So I would start here. I'm going to show it to you quickly first, and then I'll actually walk you through it. So we start by identifying the feeling, it's stress, and we start with the hand. This is called the karate chop point, because just like if we were doing karate, that would be where we would hit. So I'm going to take my other hand, and I'm just going to start tapping on that karate chop point. And I'm going to say, even though I feel all of this stress, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. And we say that 3 times here on the karate chop point. So 2 more times. Even though I feel all this stress, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. And we would do it a 3rd time. And then we're going to go to the next point, which is just inside at the corners of the eyebrows. And whenever you do the tapping, you can either do just one side or you can do both. Doesn't matter. It works fine either way. So even at the karate chop point at the beginning, if you wanted to do both hands, you could do this and just activate both sides of both hands. So this second point is just in the crook of the eyebrows there. So what we would repeat here is all this stress. So what I'm going to say is just focusing on whatever the feeling is now for each of the other points. And you may think, well, Jacqueline, why are we doing that? Because it's like we're reinforcing this bad feeling. Like I'm going to go all this stress, all this stress, all this stress. The reason is, think of it as it's kind of like you're making a target for your arrow. So you want to bring the feeling up to the surface, that difficult feeling, in this case, stress, and you really want to focus on it. And we're tapping at the same time. So I'll just quickly go through the points. So it's going to be inside the eyebrows. And then the next point is on the orbital bone, the bone at the side of the eyes. You don't want to press on the temple. That's the soft part in behind, just right on the bone. So we're going to tap. You can use 1 finger, 2 fingers, doesn't matter. And at each point when we tap, we do about 7 or 8 taps. As long as you do at least 4 taps. You can tap for as long as it takes for you to say your statement, and that's fine. So outside of the eye, next point is, I'm going to take off my glasses. It's just at the top of the cheek, but close to the nose. So right about there. And I would say again, all this stress, all this stress. And then moving down to the little notch just under the nose. And I would say all this stress, all this stress. And then moving down to the little indent above the chin and below the lip, all this stress. And then moving from there, we're going to go down to the collarbones, the 2 points of the collarbones there. You're going to go just about 1 inch below and about 1 inch out. And we're going to tap. And here, because it's a bigger area, you can use all of your fingers. And we're going to say all this stress, all this stress. And then we're going to go to underneath the arm, about 3 or 4 inches under the armpit. And we're just going to tap at the side. And again, we're going to say all this stress, all this stress. And then the last point, the 9th point, is the top of the head, right at the top of the skull. And again, we can use 2 hands here if you like, or 1, doesn't matter. You're still going to get the same effect, all this stress. So let's run through it now and just repeat after me each time we go through each of these points. Okay, so starting with the karate chop point, even though I feel all this stress, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. 2 more times. Even though I feel all this stress, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Even though I feel all this stress, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. And up to the corners of the eyebrows. All this stress, all this stress. And then the corner of the eye bones, all this stress, all this stress. And then the top of the cheekbones, all this stress, all this stress. Under the nose, all this stress, all this stress. And the chin, all this stress, all this stress. And just below the collarbones, all this stress, all this stress. And under the arm, all this stress, all this stress. Top of the head, all this stress, all this stress. Okay, big breath in, big breath out. Release that stress. And now I want you to think of, just focus in for a second, close your eyes if you need to, and pick a number again on that scale of 1 to 10. Where is your stress at now? So hopefully, usually what will happen once you get the hang of this, you'll find that that level will come down by usually at least 2 points. Sometimes it can be quite a big difference right away, 5 or 6 points. Once we get down to about 2 out of 10, that's usually a pretty good, acceptable feeling, and you can feel a real difference in relaxation. So it's like anything, it just takes a bit of practice, but it is honestly one of the most simple and really powerful and effective energy techniques to use in the moment. You can use it, I mean, even if you're at work and you're dealing maybe with a stressful coworker, or you're having anxiety anywhere, maybe it's at work. If you can, take a 5-minute break, even go into the washroom, you can do 5 minutes of tapping. And honestly, once you get the hang of it, you'll find it really has a quick effect. Sorry, Philip, did you want to jump in?
No, otherwise I'll just keep talking. But that was phenomenal. I guess I was thinking, just do the tapping right in front of them. All this stress, and that might send a little message to them as well. Thank you so much for that. That was absolutely fantastic. We can definitely move into our closing meditation. For those of you that are curious, I did throw in Jacqueline's website into the chat, so you can check out more information about Jacqueline and the services that she provides there. Please check that out. But Jacqueline, I will pass it to you to close this off for the night.
Sure. Thanks, Philip. And thanks everybody for your time and for taking part. And if you do want to get in touch, I'm happy to offer, a half-hour chat just to, if you want to ask me more questions, if you want to know more about tapping, I can run you through it. And I always like to offer, especially to Connecting Consciousness members, just to offer a first no charge chat and session. If you want, feel free. Okay, so we're gonna this meditation it's a bit of a comes from Buddhist tradition. It's called soft front and strong back. And the reason I wanted to end with this is because in doing the emotional healing work of going into the dark night of the soul, what we really need is the combination of soft, compassionate energy in our heart in order to be gentle with ourselves, give ourselves grace in going into these really difficult parts of our shadow that we've repressed and we've held down. But while doing that, in addition to being gentle and compassionate with ourselves, we also need to have a strong back. We need to have the strength with us, that warrior strength that is going to help us to make the changes in our emotional life that are going to keep us healthy, things like setting boundaries. So this meditation is just a little bit of a focus on our soft front and our strong back. So if you want to just get comfortable, and if it feels comfortable for you, just close your eyes And just going to help us to get a little bit relaxed to start. So just allow your breathing to fall into its own natural rhythm. And we're going to begin by grounding ourselves strongly and firmly to sacred Mother Gaia. So with every out breath, just see and imagine the etheric roots that come from your root chakra and growing from the bottoms of your feet. See these etheric roots growing downward, connecting first through your Earth Star chakra, which is just a few feet below your feet. And it passes through your Earth Star chakra. Your etheric roots go deeper and deeper down into the soft earth, all the way down and right down to the sacred diamond core of Mother Gaia. See your roots wrap and anchor around this diamond core. And now draw this crystalline grounding energy from the core of Mother Gaia up through your roots, all the way back up through your feet and into your body, grounding you, securing you, feeling the safety and protection that Mother Gaia gives to you. She keeps you safe, connected, grounded, and protected. Wonderful. And now in your mind's eye, imagine that above you, a pillar of beautiful, glowing, crystalline white light is flowing down from the heavens. This is divine God's, this is Source's white light of sacred protection and healing. Just allow this soft, gentle white light of peace and protection to flow down over your head. As it does, feel the tension in your forehead melt away. Feel your eyes soften and relax. Feel your jaw relax. And as the soft white light flows down to your shoulders, just allow any tension to flow out of your neck and your shoulders. Allow the beautiful, soft, glowing white light to flow down your arms, allowing all tension to simply flow out through each one of your fingertips. Notice how your chest and abdomen have found their own natural rhythm as this warm, glowing white light brings balance, peace, and relaxation to your breathing. Allow all stress and tension to simply melt away as the glowing, healing white light flows all the way down your back, warming you, relaxing you, soothing you. And the white light continues to flow down through your low back, through your hips, and it flows down your thighs and over your knees and down your calves and down the front of your shins, relaxing you even more, and down into your feet, the soles of your feet, until any remaining tension simply flows out through each one of your toes. Wonderful. And now, knowing that you're strongly grounded and completely protected, allow yourself to take just a little journey inside to connect with your highest potential for healing. And I want you to just focus on your heart energy. See yourself breathing in to your heart and breathing out from your heart. And just take a few moments to focus on and see your breath coming into your heart and out of your heart. Wonderful. And now place your attention on the front of your torso and just allow yourself to drop your energy into the front of your body and realize that this is your soft, compassionate heart center, your soft, compassionate front of your body. This is where our inner child lives. Our inner child lives in our heart. Sometimes our inner child lives right in our stomach and speaks to us through our gut feelings. We want to be compassionate towards our inner child. We want to treat that child with all the gentleness, all the softness, all the compassion that our heart contains. By showing ourselves this softness and compassion, we can allow ourselves to feel all of our emotions, even the challenging ones, those feelings that we may have held down and suppressed, those feelings that our inner child may have been judged for as being bad, those feelings that we think we need to keep hidden. All of those feelings are here with our inner child in this soft front. Just take a moment to feel that softness and gentleness. Wonderful. And now just shift your awareness into your back, into your spine. Feel the strength that is your spine. This is where our inner adult lives. Our inner adult is that part of our inner world that cares for and watches over our inner child. This is where we find the strength to set our boundaries, to speak up and to speak our truth, to say no when we need to say no in order to protect our inner child. This is the strength that we hold in our back. This is where our inner adult lives. This is where we find the courage to reach out and seek help when we need it in order to keep our inner child safe. Perhaps in order to do the emotional healing work we feel called to do. This is where we find our courage and our strength here in our back. Take a moment to feel this strength within you. Feel this strength in your back of your inner warrior, your inner adult who can act with courage and with all the strength that you need on your journey. We may think of this strength in our back as our inner divine masculine, protecting our inner divine feminine, that softness which is in the front. Take a moment to feel that beautiful balance of that soft, compassionate, open, and gentle, soft front, that divine feminine energy. and feel the balance and the support that it receives from the strong, divine masculine warrior energy, that adult energy in our back that helps us to stand straight and speak our truth. Just take a moment now and feel that beautiful balance between divine strength and divine softness within you. Wonderful. And know that you can come back to this gentle, compassionate, soft front in your heart center. And you can come back to this strong warrior energy that always rests in your spine. You can come back to these energy centers whenever you want to feel that balance within you, that balance that will help you on your journey forward in your emotional healing. And when you're ready, come back and open your eyes. Feel your feet on the floor. Feel those strong roots that are still connecting you to Mother Gaia, keeping you grounded and safe. Thank you all for taking part. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacqueline, and thank you everyone for taking part and participating with us this evening. Again, if you would like more of Jacqueline, you can check out her website. You can check out our YouTube page where she has gifted us with a lovely meditation that's on there as well. This will also be posted so you can review the tapping and go through those steps. You can enjoy the meditation again as well. So thank you, Jacqueline, for your time, your energy, your wisdom tonight. Very, very amazing to have you on. We'll have to have you on again, as there clearly was just not enough time to get to all the goods. But that's a good thing because we get to connect again and to share again. For everyone, thank you all so very much for joining us. We're looking forward to connecting with you all again this weekend and throughout the week next week. Have a lovely weekend. Sending you all much love, much joy, much gratitude as we are all on this journey in our own way, holding the light through the quest to slay the dragon, to bring back the bounty. We are doing it together. Let's lean on each other as we need to do. Thank you all so very much. Have a wonderful night. Save the chat. We'll see you all next time.
You can stop the recording.
I want to record it all the way to the end, Roland.
Okay.